Before you go, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. We love seeing how far these stories travel. If this tale touched your heart, imagine what tomorrow's story might bring. A new chapter of hope, love, or a twist you never saw coming is just around the corner. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's next. Until then, stay kind, stay curious, and keep believing in the power of one small act. A broke waitress helped a homeless man. She never expected what happened next. The rain hadn't let up for hours. It poured down in sheets, tapping against the windows of Sonny's Diner, a little roadside eatery tucked along a lonely stretch of highway in Montana. Inside, the warmth of coffee and grilled cheese sandwiches wrapped around the few late-night customers, creating a small haven from the storm outside. Behind the counter, Emily Carter, 28 years old, wiped down the last table. Her worn-out sneakers squeaked across the linoleum floor, and the scent of frying oil clung to her faded uniform. She had been working since 2 p.m., a double shift, and her back ached with exhaustion. She was counting down the minutes until she could sit down, eat her one meal of the day, and head home to the drafty, 400-square-foot apartment she shared with her sick mother. That meal, a cheeseburger with fries and a side of pickles, waited under the warming light in the kitchen window. It wasn't much, but to Emily, it meant everything. It was comfort. It was survival. It was hers. Then, the bell over the front door jingled. She looked up, startled. It was almost closing time. In stepped a man, soaked to the bone, shivering, with a torn jacket and shoes that squished with every step. His beard was overgrown, his eyes hollow. He looked like he hadn't eaten in days. He paused near the door, unsure, like he wasn't sure if he should come in at all. Emily's first instinct was to be cautious. Late-night strangers weren't always safe. But something in his face stopped her. There was no threat in his expression, only hunger. Only desperation. He stepped up to the counter, his voice barely above a whisper. I don't have any money, he said. But I just need something to eat. Anything. I'll pay you back, I swear. Emily stood frozen for a moment, staring at him. She knew what hunger looked like, had lived with it more nights than she could count. Her hand tightened around the dish towel. That burger was her last real meal until payday. But then she glanced at him again. His eyes darted to the warming tray, his body trembling with cold and exhaustion. She sighed. Without a word, she walked to the kitchen, picked up the plate, and placed it in front of him. Eat, she said softly. He blinked, as if he didn't believe her. Then, slowly, he picked up the fork. The first bite was hesitant. The second came quicker. Soon, he was devouring the meal like a man starved, not just for food, but for kindness. Emily watched from behind the counter, her heart heavy yet strangely full. She didn't know his name. Didn't know where he came from. But she knew one thing: no one should be that hungry and alone. And even if it cost her, she wouldn't be the person who turned him away. Because sometimes, one meal isn't just food, it's hope. It had been 7 days since that stormy night. 7 days since Emily Carter handed over her only meal to a stranger who walked into the diner looking like he had nothing left in the world. She hadn't seen him again. No name, no goodbye. Just a quiet "I won't forget this" before he disappeared into the rain. And true to her reality, nothing changed. Rent was still overdue. Her mom's meds were almost out. Her own stomach growled through double shifts. Emily told herself she hadn't made a mistake. She did the right thing. But a tiny voice inside kept asking, what if that was your one chance, and you gave it away? Then, on a quiet Wednesday morning, just before the lunch rush, the mail arrived. Betty, the diner's owner, waved a thick, white envelope in the air as she walked in. "Emily, you've got mail." Emily frowned. She rarely got anything but bills, and never in envelopes this nice. The paper was smooth, heavy. Her name was written in elegant handwriting, no return address. She tore it open, hands trembling. Inside was a one-way plane ticket to San Diego, leaving the next day. Tucked behind it was a single note, written in the same hand. I told you I wouldn't forget. Come to this address. J.D. Her heart stopped. J.D. It had to be him. She stared at the ticket. This had to be a joke. Or a mistake. Who just sends a plane ticket to a broke waitress from Montana? She barely had enough gas to get home, let alone fly to California. That night, she sat in the glow of her cheap lamp, staring at the ticket over and over again. The address printed on the back was for some estate in a fancy part of San Diego. She Googled it on her cracked phone. What came up made her breath hitch. Hale Estate. Jackson Dean. CEO. Billionaire. Founder of Dean Innovations. Her hands shook. Jackson Dean, that name was everywhere in tech and finance articles. A self-made mogul, rarely seen in public, known for keeping his personal life locked down. Could it be him? The man from the diner? She didn't sleep that night. Her mind spun with questions, fears, and just the smallest sliver of hope. Maybe he was paying her back. Maybe he was just crazy. Maybe she was. But the next morning, she packed her one decent pair of jeans, her mom's picture, and enough courage to board the plane. The flight was smooth, but her heart pounded the whole way. When the cab pulled up to the estate, her jaw dropped. It wasn't a house, it was a mansion. A white, modern palace with glass windows, fountains, and a view of the ocean that looked like it belonged in a movie. She hesitated at the gates. The driver glanced at her. You sure this is the place? No, she whispered. But she stepped out anyway. Because something told her this was only the beginning. The gates slowly swung open with a quiet buzz. Emily clutched the strap of her worn-out duffel bag, her heart pounding as she stepped onto the long stone driveway. Everything felt surreal. The air smelled like citrus and salt water. Palm trees swayed in the breeze. Sunlight bounced off the glass walls of the mansion ahead like it was trying to blind her. The front doors opened before she could even knock. A man in a sharp black suit, probably in his 60s, gave her a polite nod. Miss Carter, Mr. Dean is expecting you. Her mouth went dry. Mr. Dean. It was really him. The butler, or assistant, or whoever he was, led her through the foyer. Marble floors. A chandelier bigger than her entire kitchen back home. Art on the walls that looked like it belonged in a museum. Emily couldn't stop staring. She tried to hide how out of place she felt, but her faded jeans and thrift store boots were a dead giveaway. Then they entered a sunlit sitting room, and there he was. Jackson Dean. He stood up from a leather couch, wearing a crisp navy blue shirt, no tie, sleeves casually rolled. Clean-shaven now. Hair neat. No mud, no grime, no desperation. Just calm, collected confidence. But when their eyes met, she saw it, that same look from the diner. Humble. Grateful. Human. Emily, he said, offering a small, almost sheepish smile. She didn't smile back. What is going on? He motioned for her to sit. She didn't move. Her arms crossed. She wanted answers. I wasn't lying that night, he said gently. I didn't have any money. But what I didn't tell you is that it wasn't always like that. She raised an eyebrow. Jackson took a breath. A few years ago, before all this, I lost everything. Bad investments, betrayals, the whole thing. I was homeless for almost a year. Slept in my car. Then on benches. I hit rock bottom. Emily's jaw tightened. Someone helped me, he continued. A stranger who saw more in me than I saw in myself. They gave me a second chance. And when I walked into that diner, I remembered what it felt like to have nothing. And you, he pointed gently at her, you didn't hesitate. I gave you a burger, she said flatly. You gave me dignity, he said. And that's something I never forgot. Silence filled the room. Then he stood. I want to return the favor, Emily. I want to help you. She blinked. Help me how? He walked to the window, hands in his pockets. A job. A real opportunity. Not charity. You have heart, grit, instincts that can't be taught. I've already set it up. You'd work as an assistant in business development. Learn the ropes. Build something. She stared at him. This was insane. She was a diner waitress from Montana. She didn't know the first thing about business, about tech, about any of this. But the way he looked at her, like she could do it, like she belonged here. And for the first time in a long time, something inside her whispered, what if you actually can? Emily didn't sleep much that first week. The guest suite in Jackson's mansion was bigger than her entire apartment back home. The bed was soft, the sheets smelled like lavender, and the bathroom had heated floors. It should have felt like a dream, but she couldn't shake the anxiety gnawing at her chest. Every morning, she rode with Jackson to the headquarters of Dean Innovations, a sleek glass tower overlooking downtown San Diego. And every morning, the same question echoed in her head, what am I doing here? The office was a different world, buzzing with energy, full of sharp suits and sharper eyes. Everyone moved fast, talked fast, thought fast. Emily, meanwhile, was just trying to remember which hallway led to the coffee machine. Jackson had set her up as an assistant in the business development department. He told her it wasn't a handout, that she'd earn her place. But it didn't take long for the whispers to start. That's the girl from Montana, right? I heard she was a waitress. Must be nice, getting handed a job just like that. Emily tried to ignore it. She worked late. Took notes. Googled every term she didn't understand. She watched YouTube tutorials on Excel until her eyes blurred. She wanted to prove them wrong, not just for them, but for herself. Still, the doubt crept in. One afternoon, as she passed two well-dressed women in the hallway, she heard one of them chuckle, she probably doesn't even know what a quarterly report is. They didn't know she was close enough to hear. Emily ducked into a bathroom stall, her hands shaking. Maybe they're right, she thought. Maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I never did. That night, she stayed in the office long after everyone had left. She stared at a spreadsheet she didn't understand, frustration rising in her throat like a fire. Long day, a familiar voice asked from the doorway. Jackson leaned casually against the frame, sleeves rolled up, tie loose. Emily didn't look at him. I'm trying. But I'm always behind. I don't talk like them, I don't dress like them. They know I don't belong. He stepped inside, walked to her desk, and waited until she finally met his gaze. You belong here, he said firmly. You have what they don't, resilience. You've survived more than most of them ever will. They think this world is about numbers and deals. But it's about people. And you understand people better than anyone I know. Her eyes stung. I didn't bring you here out of pity, he continued. I brought you here because I believe in you. But now you have to believe in yourself. She nodded slowly, wiping a tear from the corner of her eye. And from that moment on, something shifted. She still struggled, still stumbled, but she stopped doubting her place. She asked more questions, spoke up in meetings, and started to see the sparks of her own potential. But deep down, a quieter truth lingered. No matter how far she came, would she ever truly feel at home in this world? Weeks passed, and Emily started to find her rhythm. She wasn't just surviving anymore, she was contributing. She sat in meetings, shared ideas, and even caught a small error in a proposal that saved the company thousands of dollars. Slowly, the whispers faded. People started to respect her, not because of Jackson, but because she earned it. But even as her confidence grew, a question lingered in her heart, is this really me? That doubt hit hardest the night of the annual Dean Innovations Gala. It was held at a luxury ballroom downtown, filled with San Diego's wealthiest, investors, CEOs, media personalities. The room glittered with crystal chandeliers and designer gowns. Emily stood at the edge of the crowd, clutching a champagne flute she hadn't touched, dressed in a stunning gown that didn't feel like hers. She scanned the room, watching people talk about hedge funds, art auctions, and private jets. She had never felt more like an outsider. It didn't matter how far she'd come or what she'd accomplished, this world still didn't feel like hers. Jackson found her on the balcony, staring out at the city. "You okay?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded. "I don't know." He looked at her with concern, but before he could say more, a man in a tux stepped out and joined them. "Jackson," the man grinned, then turned to Emily with a polite smile. "And who's this?" "This is Emily Carter," Jackson said. "She works with me." "Ah," the man said, amused. "So you're the one everyone's been whispering about. Quite the lucky break, huh?" Emily's heart dropped. The man meant no harm, but his words stung. Lucky. Like she hadn't worked for every inch of progress she'd made. She forced a smile, then excused herself. Alone again, standing in the night air, Emily knew the truth. No matter how much she succeeded, this world would never stop seeing her as the girl from the diner. And the hardest part? She still saw herself that way, too. When Jackson joined her again, she didn't wait. "I can't do this," she said, her voice barely a whisper. He froze. "What do you mean?" "This life, it's not mine. I tried. I really did. But no matter how hard I work, I don't belong here. Not in this world. Not like this." His jaw clenched. "So, you're leaving?" She nodded, tears threatening to spill. "I need to go home." He was silent for a long time. Then, quietly, he said, "I don't want you to go, but if you have to, I won't stop you." That was the moment her heart broke. The next morning, she left. Back in Montana, life returned to its quiet routine, coffee pots, tired booths, and her mom's gentle voice calling her sweetheart. She told herself it was the right choice. But late at night, when the diner was quiet, she missed him. And then, one day, the bell above the door chimed, and there he was. No suit. No entourage. Just Jackson. "I don't care where we are," he said. "I just want you." And this time, she didn't run. This story reminds us that sometimes, one small act of kindness can change a life, and even rewrite a future. But now we want to hear from you. What did this story mean to you? Have you ever helped someone without expecting anything in return, or has a stranger ever changed your life in an unexpected way? Drop your thoughts in the comments, whether it's a personal story, a favorite moment from the video, or just how this made you feel. We read every single comment, and your voice matters more than you know. Also, tell us where you're watching from. It's amazing to see this community grow across the world, so don't be shy. Share your city, your country, or even your favorite diner if you have one. If this story touched your heart, there's more where that came from. Be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss tomorrow's brand new story, another powerful tale of resilience, love, and the unexpected twists that life has in store. We're so glad you're here. Now, what's your story?